Hello and welcome to the Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue and I guess complete our Halloween retrospective with the 2018 reboot Halloween. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we are going to talk about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So, warning, spoilers ahead. This movie is in the theaters right now. So, that is your warning, and it's the only one you'll get. And we're going to talk about everything in this movie. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, co-author of California Tiki, out now from the History Press. With me from Austin is Mr. Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. And also from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer of the long-running indie comic Halloween Man, and coming October 24th, that's very soon, from Comixology and Sugar Skull Media, the all-new two-issue miniseries Halloween Man, Hallow Tide. Say hello, Drew.
Hello. Or I should
Hello.
breathe deeply. Like Michael Myers.
After being burnt up in the fire.
And from the Rio Grande Valley, Professor David Bowles has received awards from the American Library Association, Texas Institute of Letters, and the Texas Associated Press to the dozen books he's written. He's recently added Feathered Serpent, Dark Heart of Sky, Myths of Mexico, and soon the YA steampunk graphic novel Clockwork Curandera. Say hello, David.
¿Dónde están mis hijos?
Thinking about La Llorona, I know.
My baby.
And finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Joya Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello, Joya.
Hello.
All right, Halloween, and that is the title of this. I'm actually going to get the novelization of this movie, and it is called Halloween. Is a 2018 American slasher film directed by David Gordon Green, written by Green, Jeff Fradley, and Danny McBride. It is the 11th installment in the Halloween film series, and it is a direct sequel to the 1978 film of the same name, while retconning the continuity of the previous sequels. It is set 40 years after the original film, and it follows Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, as she prepares to face Michael Myers in a final confrontation when he returns to Haddonfield to finish her off for escaping his killing spree on Halloween night in 1978. Jamie Lee Curtis and Nick Castle reprise their roles as Strode and Myers, and stuntman James Jude Courtney also plays Myers for the things that don't involve seeing the man's face. The film also stars Judy Greer, Andy Matichak, Will Patton, and Virginia Gardner. So I am excited to talk about this. We have been thinking about this movie for a while. I'm not sure if talking about it, it'll be difficult to capture all of our thoughts. We're going to do our best. So we have a supersized team as we have for the Halloween series. Julia, Tony, Drew, David, and then I'll go. Give me your opening 90 seconds to 2 minutes opening thoughts on Halloween 2018, starting with Julia. Julia, lay it on me.
Well, this is the Halloween for the Me Too generation, which is awesome because it is girl power all the way. So I absolutely love that. I feel like this film is sort of the going back to the basics of what do you need to include in just a good solid horror film slash film. Yeah, there's a couple of scenes that are a little gory for me because as you know I don't like the gore, but I really enjoyed it tremendously. I thought it was just nice and clean as far as obviously not the gore part, but as far as like sticking to the checking off all the check marks that need to be checked off. It picks up right at the end of, or not right at the end of, but 40 years after the Halloween, the first one, and ignores all the sequels. So it was very interesting to kind of revisit that and pretend none of the rest of it existed. But yeah, I really had a great time.
Fantastic. Tony, you actually have been waiting for us to watch this. And so we finally have, and I'm curious as to what you're open, like how would you start the conversation on this as far as you're concerned?
So I came out of it. Now, granted, I saw it with a bunch of like-minded people. I saw this film at Fantastic Fest. I was already psyched to enjoy a movie because I wanted to get away from work and enjoy a movie. I saw it with a bunch of friends that I enjoy seeing movies with. There was a great Q&A with Jamie Lee Curtis and Danny McBride and the producers and the other actresses in the film. So, of course, that does color it a little bit. However, I also came out of that film going, that's how you make a horror sequel. Like, people who want to step it up, to me, this is how you do it. This is not me trying to give a blurb. This is not me. I tend to like things. That's a hallmark you've probably seen if you're
Mhm.
listening to the show for any length of time. I don't have to hate a thing just because it's new, although sometimes newer remakes are not that great. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I couldn't wait to share it with because I knew we were going to do the Thorn trilogy, and I'm just like, but I have to wait.
I had to slog through those films.
Everybody. So that part was super frustrating. Going back what Julia said, Jamie Lee Curtis mentioned a lot that this is an empowerment film. It's written that way. It also deals a lot with what it would be like to be a victim of something this tragic, and I think there's a lot there. It's got a lot of tropes, but it also brings back a lot of the things that I think really work. I dig this movie a lot. To me, it's my favorite sequel. I know a lot of old school fans. There's things I like about a lot of the other ones, but I know that there's going to be some hardcore fans who wonder what the hell I'm talking about, and that's okay. We can all like what we like, but I just thought it was done, and it didn't feel like it should be this good. Like we've just watched the Thorn trilogy, so this is way better than that. And anybody who says differently, that's okay that you have your opinion, but
you're deluded.
I don't know. I don't know if I think there's a lot of nostalgia going on if that's what you think. But this is just me as a person with an opinion. So
Very good. All right, Drew. What are your opening thoughts here on the new Halloween?
I really first off, I'm gonna say I really enjoyed this movie, particularly the score and the last very, very good last 20 minutes. I don't know that I loved it quite as much as Tony, but it's definitely one of my favorite. It'll definitely be in one of my favorite Halloween. Like, if I'm going to be revisiting movies from the Halloween franchise, I would definitely revisit this one before a lot of the other ones, because I think what I've discovered is the movie has to have Jamie Lee Curtis as the main character for me to enjoy it, because all of the Halloween sequels that I really like have Jamie Lee Curtis in a very substantial part. Along those same lines, I have my head canon for the series, which I've talked about on the other podcast, even though I have seen all of the different Halloween movies. I kind of walked out of this with the same feeling I had when I saw Halloween H2O all those years ago. I was like, wow, that was really good. That was like a really good, solid sequel, and it left me feeling with this sense of completion. They should stop making them. And I kind of had this same feel. I know that's not what's going to happen, and I probably will see the inevitable sequel to this, but there was a finality about this that I got at this, that I got out of also seeing, Jamie Lee Curtis chop off Michael Myers' head at the end of H2O. I got the same thing from the ending of this, which we'll surely talk about. But good movie, great score. Like the score, I'm going to be blasting that for days.
Well, I mean, the Carpenters had a hand in it, so there you go.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what it takes. Go back to the basics. And I'm with you about the sequels, by the way. Like, I would be fine. I know it's not going to happen. I know they're going to, whatever makes money in Hollywood, it's going to be fine. But to me, this is the sequel, and it's okay. It would be okay if we left it here. It'd be more than okay. I would totally dig on that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Although I have been sort of jokingly, even though it's affectionate, and I have to say on Facebook, I've already been calling this Halloween 2 Part 3 because it's
which I stole.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. All right, I'm done.
David, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, I saw this. In fact, I saw this last night in Philadelphia in a theater in a working class neighborhood, mostly African American and Puerto Rican, and the audience ate this shit up, and I was with them 100% of the way. It was just so much fun to watch. It was a crowd pleaser. It hit all the right notes. Michael feels menacing again. He scares the holy shit out of you again and again and again. He's not standing around as some like obscure rite is being carried out. Like, just what do I do? He's just fucking everybody's shit up, and he doesn't care. I I loved it. Having I agree with Drew that the best films in the series have Laurie Strode, and I mean, and without her, it doesn't quite work. She's like the beating heart of the series. There was one of the complaints that people have had. There's some legitimacy to it in that the film compared to the first film, which had like this. It was like a very tightly plotted film with a very consistent tone. This movie does have like these weird tonal shifts that don't always work, and it isn't as tightly plotted. There's like some meandering around of the Laurie Strode character and some choices that she makes that don't like resonate completely well, and that could have been just tightened up, with maybe a couple more passes to the script or whatever. And there are a couple of odd subplots, like concerning the doctor and so forth, that feel like that they're like a little out of place and just there just to throw a hiccup in the midst of things. But for the most part, like I was down for the whole thing. I was completely into it. I just really feel that I mean, I agree with Tony and Drew that this really should be the last one, and I know it's not going to be, and I know they're going to come up with some really hinky way of like bringing this guy back after his half of his hand has been blown off by a shotgun, and his other hand has been like sliced pretty badly with a knife, and then he's been like caught on fire. I mean, just having him come back after that, he's not supposed to be Jason, and the whole point of this film is that is to back off of that overly supernatural thing and make him again like a smaller but yet like incredibly menacing figure. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this one a lot.
Menacing because of his humanity.
Yeah.
The more I'm slowly, we've been doing this show now for about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and I'm slowly beginning to realize that I have some kind of a way of understanding horror movies as campfire tales that are told again and again and again, and you can constantly be flashing your hands across people's eyes and saying, "Let me start over," and that's okay. So I think this week we can deal with a semi-human Michael who amazes you with how much he can carry off, considering his age. And then next week, or last week, we can talk about a druidic sort of functionary Michael, and then meanwhile we can talk about a just massive mountain man Taylor Maine sort of Michael, and there can be all these different versions of this story. And in fact, we could have bad sequels to this movie and I will just simply erase them from my mind. I guarantee you.
Well,
it,
that's
it,
what
it
they
will.
invite you to do.
Yeah, it basically they don't, it doesn't bother me at all. If you come out with this is a good one. If you come out with if you're a painter and you paint good paintings and you paint a good a series that are based on this particular horseman that you're going to show, and you do 2 or 3 that are really good and one that's not very good, in my mind it's like it doesn't exist. I won't buy the print of that one, and it's fine. But I was amazed by this one. I was amazed. I It was me and Julia and our 16-year-old. We all had a great time. And did I feel safer and more grounded than I did when I was watching, for instance, the Rob Zombie movies? Yes, I did. It is much more of a crowd pleasing kind of, I know what the rails are sort of movie. That doesn't bother me at all because I think that's how this art works. So let's let's start with, I think we can meander, but I definitely first want to start with this film's presentation of Laurie Strode. And if you recall, we've done this once before because 20 years after the 1978 film, we had a 1998 version of Laurie that was a completely different conception of what would have become of Laurie Strode and how she would have coped with the trauma that she went through. Julia,
She,
I think you were about to say something. So go ahead and say,
yeah,
where do we find her here, and what did you think of this version?
she is very. I loved this version of Lori because she is both super strong, but she's not like Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2 strong because she has her vulnerabilities. You can tell she's terrified. I mean, she'll
Mm,
break down in tears, she'll be scared, but she's still going to power through it because she's like, this, I have to, put into this monster. And so she has created her whole life. She's spent her entire 4 decades planning. I don't know how she's earned the money because Sophia goes, how is it that crazy people always find the money to build these badass safe houses? And I'm like, good question, because seriously, that had to be a lot of money that she spent on all those like iron gates and like the mechanized the medians and all that. So I don't know where she got the money, but presumably she's had some
It's
jobs or some
alimony from her 2
inheritance.
marriages that failed.
There
Oh
you go.
yeah, that's possible. Yeah,
And
yeah,
possibly inheritances or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, she spent her whole life planning to to trap Michael and kill him and whatever else. And now that it's here, yeah, she's scared shitless, but she's also ready, and she's so frustrated and angry that her daughter does not take this danger seriously, and that she spent so much time trying to teach her daughter to be ready, and instead her daughter was taken from her by social services because the kids are supposed to have childhoods and not be trained to be like assassin apprentices or whatever. But so I think she's a very interesting and complex character, and I really love that so many of the things she does are mirroring the things that Michael did in the first movie,
Yeah,
like the disappearing from the fall off the balcony and standing outside across the street, so that when you look out the school window, you see her standing there and like appearing from behind, just these wonderful little nods to the first film to show that the shoe is a little bit on the other foot, at least,
but
hopefully.
the physical design of Laurie, I mean, like for instance, think of who Jamie Lee Curtis is in our universe. In the universe of 2018, we know Jamie Lee Curtis damn well as a very sophisticated, outspoken daughter of Tony Curtis. She's Hollywood royalty. She's aged gracefully into a sort of constant presence. She's never gone away. She's always been quite elegant, and she's always had this really sort of rather dapper short hair. And and I have to say that character in 1998 was Jamie Lee Curtis. It was like, hey, look, Laurie Strode became Jamie Lee Curtis. This is not that at all. This is Laurie Strode. She's got this frizz. It's like she took her hair from the 70s and it just went gray and a little frizzy. That's it.
Well,
She's
it's
yeah,
it's
go ahead.
it's funny you talk about like the difference the way Jamie Lee Curtis looks versus the way Laurie Strode looks in this movie.
Yeah,
Jamie Lee Curtis has aged better than Laurie Strode.
Oh
that's
yeah,
Like
true.
they really like weather her up, because
Yeah,
like I just watched 2 interviews with her and she basically looks the same. She's got gray hair instead of
right,
brown hair, but she basically looks the same as she did when she made Halloween H2O. Like she has
right.
not aged that much. But like here, she's playing a grandmother. She looks like someone's grandmother.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was funny. Somebody said something that basically alluded about Jamie Lee Curtis's age, and she just went off on him in the Q&A. It was
Really?
amazing. Everybody
Oh,
not well,
tell me more.
not mean spiritedly, but she was like, she basically took it, spun it back around, and everybody in the audience was cheering because it was kind of like I don't think the person really meant it to be a thing, but then she's really good at working a crowd too, which was
Wow.
really awesome. She's really like a person, after seeing Q&A, like, man, how do we hang out? Because she was super cool.
No,
She
she's
also
always
likes,
seemed.
random, like she likes Five Nights at Freddy's. She's a huge fan because her son is, and World of Warcraft.
Do you know who
She's
her
crazy.
husband is? This is amazing to me. Maybe everybody knows, but Jamie Lee Curtis is married to Christopher Guest, or I should say Baron Hayden Guest
Hmm.
himself. She has never appeared in any of the Good Baron's faux documentaries. Their careers are completely sort of parallel to one another without ever crossing. Is the weirdest thing in the world, but yes, but her Laurie, I found it really fascinating. They introduced this Laurie by having these podcasters come to Laurie's place and offer her $3,000, and that gives us, because they're new to it, it gives us the opportunity to come into Laurie's world, and which is a locked down compound in the woods somewhere near Haddonfield. And she's got floodlights, she's got electronic locks, and all of these locks. She's got weapons, and she does seem strangely fragile, and that's what's really interesting about her bravery, is because of her fragility, how she seems to be just really hurt. The wounds seem to be very present for her.
But
That
that's how living with post-traumatic stress is.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and I feel like, you know, you look at this and you look at Halloween H2O, and you know, that is something that Jamie Lee Curtis plays very well. And you know, having just watched an interview with her, you know, when she started talking about Laurie Strode's trauma and, you know, her closeness to this character, now having played her several
mm,
times, she actually started to like get a little choked up while
aw,
talking about this. And, you know, like as somebody who has post-traumatic stress issues myself, like I found that very touching, you know,
yeah,
like, you know, like that she's really gone that deep with this, because this could have just easily been a paycheck to her, you know, like Sean Connery coming back again to play James Bond one more
right,
time, you know, she, you know, and honestly, every time I've seen her play this character, it never seems phoned in, you
right,
know, like she really seems invested in it. And particularly in this one, because I feel like they really obviously, you know, it's funny because like they ignore sequels, but there's an obvious affection, not just for the original film, but for the franchise as a whole. And
Oh,
mhm,
I think maybe she probably picked up on that, and because of that, like this is really good work. And you know, just like the whole scene, you know, with her and the podcasters,
mhm,
like if that had just been it, if that had just been somehow been the movie, I actually would have been like okay, because I thought that the scene that you're talking about, I thought that was like terrific acting, you know,
yeah,
on her part.
well,
yeah.
you know, talking about the love of the franchise, did you catch the mask from part
Oh
3?
yeah, that made me so happy.
And they're like, the filmmakers were like, oh man, that was one of the best things when we got to have that. Like
Tell me
they
more
were
about
super
this.
Oh, a kid
I
wearing it. Yeah.
in the like when they're
The
walking
Silver
around during
Shamrock Man.
Halloween.
oh yes,
There's a couple of shots of the mask. And they even don't they I think they even like played part of it somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. But there's a whole thing where it's the mask from part 3,
yes,
like the pumpkin mask.
that's right, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yes, I forgot all about that, but
Also,
yes,
off air, because Jamie Lee Curtis made us the whole theater promise not to tell. I have a great Easter egg,
okay.
and then maybe eventually, once somebody else leaks it, I can leak it on
Well,
one of
okay.
the podcasts.
We're gonna have a section where we talk about Easter eggs. Actually, the so Laurie is conceived here. Like we said, she is not a superhero. She is a woman who has prepared herself while functioning inside of her mental illness. And here's what's interesting to me is all of the shit that people say to Laurie about coping and about things that she should do and whatever. The funny thing is, half of the advice they give her would probably be accurate. Maybe more than half the advice would be accurate, except it just so happens that she is living in a Halloween movie. In other words, if she were not in the Halloween universe, then her daughter Judy Greer probably would be completely right in saying, "Listen, you have burnt your life up in your hypervigilance. You have destroyed your relationships because you have been unable to grapple with all of this because you want to remain on the razor's edge." And the only reason she is right is because she lives in the Halloween universe. Otherwise, because if she were in our universe, I think we could all agree, yes, Laurie has destroyed herself, and it's a sad story, and there's not a happy ending to it.
Right.
But it just so happens that this is the Halloween universe, so there is a happy ending to it because damn it, he really is going to come back and she's going to be proven exactly right.
You know, and the good thing about this film is, in the midst of all this trauma, she is a deeply flawed hero. Like, we want her to win, we root for her, but she also like makes, you know, mistakes and is essentially using her family as bait at one point. And
Mhm.
I mean, you know, she has the opportunity sitting outside of the prison to, yes, it will cost her freedom, but to kill Michael right then and there.
Yeah,
And keep, you know, the 19 people that subsequently die in this film alive, and she
yeah,
doesn't do it. And so I mean, those kinds of things, you know, make her character even more poignant and relatable, because she's not like, you know, Sigourney Weaver or
no,
Linda Hamilton. She's not a complete militarized badass in the wake of her trauma. She's been broken by it as well as made strong by it.
yeah. Yeah. There's a moment when she comes into the celebration. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
dinner.
yeah,
Just the
yeah.
dinner with her daughter and her granddaughter and the husband of her daughter, and
And the
she
boyfriend.
breaks into tears because she's so ill. It's so sweet. She breaks into tears because she is so ill-equipped to sit down and have a normal dinner,
No,
and
that's
she's
not
so.
why. I don't
But
think
it's
that's
also
why.
Michael's also on the loose at
Yeah,
that
I
point.
think Michael's just escaped, and she's like, "Here we
I
go."
guess that's. I guess
I think
that's
What's
the only
not
true.
getting
reason she's even at that dinner is because she feels like she needs to protect them because he's on the loose.
But the fact that she leaves without them also kind of suggests that there are more things, because she leaves that place
Yeah,
without them.
I guess you're right.
Well,
And
but this is a family. Like that's the thing. Like a lot of this movie
Yeah.
is a family drama.
yeah,
You know, like and it's
and actually really well done. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty realistic look at it. You know, they've stuff that they've tried to do in some of the other sequels, even aspects of this in some of the Thorn
Yes.
films. And you know, I feel like what this movie did better than those movies. You know, like you know, H2O probably being the only one that even remotely comes close. Although I would say this has a higher punching class as far as
Yeah.
that stuff goes. This convincingly portrays this sort of broken family that you know, trauma does that, and it cuts across generations, because you have, you know, the daughter who was raised in this basically raised to be the final girl.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is
Sure.
weird.
Yeah.
And then the granddaughter who doesn't understand why she can't have a normal relationship with her grandmother because of all
Yeah.
this. And you know, one of the things I did find very fascinating in resulting of this, this movie obliterates the idea that Michael Myers only kills teenagers, because like throughout this movie, and I don't know whether this is intentional or not, he's destroying families, which is funny because they've removed the idea that he's actually part of this family, and yet
Yeah.
that core idea of him being a destroyer of families has never been more literal, because he kills across age gaps, he kills across gender gaps. So you have this broken family on one end, and you have a breaker of families on the other end. And
like
I was
that.
just
And he likes to
fascinated.
leave, like the detritus behind. I like the there's this one scene where he kills the woman in the kitchen, and he's walking through the house, and there's a baby crying, and he just like he pauses for a moment, and he continues walking on.
I was worried for that baby, man.
Yeah, well,
'cause
me
that-
too.
he kills the kid.
That was
He kills that
everybody's
kid
thing.
at the beginning, like toward the beginning when he escapes, he kills a kid. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, wow, this movie is
And
decided.
everybody,
well, actually-
everybody in the theater I was at was like going, no, don't kill a kid, don't kill a kid. And he does it, but there's like this pause. There's almost like a moment of like kind of human or ethical reflection. But I think it's more like, if I leave this kid alive, he is going to be so fucked up, and this family is going to be so broken that
Well,
I
the
will have done my job. I did my
I-
job.
The
I don't
thesis
even
of
know if
Michael
Michael-
Myers of this movie is almost a rebuttal of the Rob Zombie movies, which did a job of humanizing Michael
Yeah.
Myers.
Okay, we are
They
now in
treated-
the
they
Michael
treated-
Myers. Let me just interrupt for a second. We are now in the Michael Myers section of the conversation.
Oh,
Continue.
yes.
Well, I mean, if you want to continue talking about Laurie, we can. But I feel
No,
like
we're good. Because
we're going to go back to when we talk about the climax. We're going to go back
Yes,
into
yes.
talking about Laurie.
Yeah.
Also, like when the podcasters are talking to Laurie, and they're having the whole idea of you know, what is this person like? Would you sit down with talking to him? You know, would you have a conversation with Michael Myers? What would that mean to you? She basically says you cannot be reasoned with this evil thing. You know,
Mhm.
this isn't a person, this isn't it. And I think as far as like the simplicity of Michael Myers, he is not a serial killer in this film. And in fact,
No, he's not.
even in the technical rules of what a serial killer is, like, he's only killed 5 people. You know, he you know, if you remove all the sequels,
Well, he kills 19 people in this film.
Yeah, that's true. He kills
Well,
me.
he does.
But-
But that still makes him
He's a mass murderer.
Well,
is
one
what
But
he
thing
is.
he is
that he
technically,
does-
but he's just a thing.
Yeah.
It's a mistake to view him as a person, and that's
Yeah, like I love
the
all that
thesis of
voiceover
this movie.
with Loomis saying, just fucking destroy him. Like what? No, what to do with him? Destroy him, kill him, burn him, chop him up. Like that.
He calls him it.
That's right. You're right.
Yes.
It's totally
Yeah.
right. He does say it. So let's talk about this. So we're going to talk about Michael Myers. Let's talk about the scene in the courtyard, because that is the single most chilling thing, in my opinion, in the whole thing, is the unmasked Michael Myers, chained, standing in this yellow square, surrounded by other almost like Renfield like
Yes.
crazy people who are also extremely violent and are in their own squares.
Well, that's how
And
the film is too. Well, aside from the awesome opening credits with the reverse
Jack-o'-lantern, yeah.
deterioration of the jack-o'-lantern, that was kind of cool. But again, with the simplicity, I just love the simplicity of that. It's this jack-o'-lantern with time-lapse photography, but backwards deteriorating. And then we go to these British journalists who are obsessed with Michael Myers and go out to interview him and bring the mask. And as soon as they produce the mask, all of the prisoners who are around the yard, and they're all tied to their spots, so they have fresh air, but they're not moving around. They all start kind of howling and going crazy and freaking out.
As if they're his voice. Like he doesn't know,
Right.
but these are the people that are speaking for him. This is what's going on inside of him right now. And it's pretty friggin', and just seeing a little bit of his face in that quarter profile or whatever. It just, I just found it really, really chilling.
But it's also scary because when they're freaking out, they're realizing that, it's kind of like what you said, they are the voice of all this evil, but they're also, every one of them is reacting to, do you know what true evil is? Like you're bringing about this thing. All of them are freaked out because they know
what's about to happen.
They all have this idea of this is not a thing to be awakened.
They're like, dude, we've been out here on this, we've been hanging with this guy for decades now. What the fuck? We're crazy. You're crazier. What are you doing? This mask?
Well, the other thing though, when you were talking about this, whether or not he's a mass murderer or a serial killer or whatever, one thing I did like that they brought back is his weird, he brings back those weird tableaus that he does of things.
Yes.
Where he's rearranges, so he is more like a serial killer in that aspect, because
that's totally true.
He throughout the movie he brings back, in the first one where he, there's a person made up on the bed and there's all these he arranges these people after he's killed them and does things, and he
putting the son-in-law in the closet shelf and stuff like that.
Yeah,
or the ghost,
is
the ghost thing, which is an Easter egg back to the original. But remember, Mike was playful enough to dress up like a ghost to toy with PJ Souls. In here, after he kills a babysitter, he puts the ghost thing over her, and we have that terrifying moment when Will Patton has to reach out and try to pull the mask off, and he's not sure if Michael's under it.
Yeah, pull the sheet off.
The sheet. Yeah, he doesn't know if Michael's under it or if or what. And that is a terrifying moment, considering what an easy gag it is. What a gag that costs nothing is.
The stuff with the teeth in the gas station.
Oh my
gosh! Yes.
Once he breaks out, and that whole gas station scene is where he's attacking, and again, the podcaster being at a screening full of people who are critics or at least super genre fans, so they are, the podcasters did hit home with everybody there. I was like, here's these people, let's bring this up. Oh, we're you're journalists. Oh, we're podcasters, which
award-winning podcast.
Comes back on us, but
right? That gas station, by the way, is an exact replica of the one that was in Halloween 4.
Oh yeah.
I guess it is. That's true.
Yeah.
I want to talk a minute about not just the tableaus, but the way this movie showcases violence, because Julia was talking about this earlier. This movie, I wouldn't exactly call it gory. I would call it ghoulish, because it's not interested that much in the actual kill scenes. It actually often cuts away from him killing people. There's in particular, I think of the scene where he goes into the tool shed and picks up the hammer and then walks into the kitchen, and you don't actually see him hitting her with the hammer. But what this movie is really interested in is showing the after effects of him killing somebody. It'll linger on a body that has been mangled or smashed or crushed or stabbed. And to me that is more properly ghoulish than
Yeah.
gory. And I think for a movie called Halloween, and that's an important distinction to make, because when we think of what Halloween is as a holiday, it is a ghoulish holiday.
Yep.
And like I found that to be a very fascinating distinction, because look, I'm a Friday the 13th fan. I talk about those
Yeah.
movies are all about, okay,
The
we're gonna
kills.
show you the grisliest, goriest thing we can come up with. And I love those movies for that. But Halloween to me is something different.
Right. Well, it
And
doesn't, like you're saying, it doesn't show the actual killing, but it'll show, like, I mean, the brains, all over the ground, or the guy's jaw has been broken
Ripped
off.
out.
So now there's
Yeah.
like
or he's made a
whatever. It's a,
jack-o'-lantern out of somebody's
The
severed head.
jack-o'-lantern,
jack-
oh my God, what an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's fast. Honestly, you might not even catch it if you don't quite
that one's
jive.
fast, but the other ones are not fast. Like the thing with the boyfriend, again with the
Pinned to the
kill
wall.
that happens. Yeah, a kill that happens off screen. You see the boyfriend decide, okay, I'm gonna go put an end to this guy, and then the next time we see him, he's been stabbed through the neck and hung and is pinned to the wall with that knife. And then they're like, did you see it? Because let's show it to you again. I'm like, no, I really didn't need to see it twice. Thanks though. Appreciate it.
How good is the kid?
But that's an interesting
Oh, that the kid
way
that's being
to shock
babysat?
people.
Yeah.
That
Oh
is
my
not
God.
done in horror films nowadays. That is not that is kind of unlearning.
Right.
And
Right.
I found that fascinating. And I also want to talk about the mask, because we're talking about this report, like him unveiling the mask and everything. This was the coolest looking Michael Myers, because I again, I like to talk a lot of smack about Michael Myers anytime we do one of these movies, because I'm a Jason fan and that's what you do. But like, I love the way that they weathered the mask to make it look like an older person's face.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's
Well, and to make it look like it's been sitting in somebody's, what do you call it, Foot Locker for 40 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
'cause
looked so cool.
Those things are not meant to last. So like that's why we don't
Yeah.
have a lot of Harry House and stuff, for example.
Mhm.
You build it for whatever, and think of any Halloween mask that you've seen, like those things deteriorate. Costumes
Absolutely.
definitely are cheap. So
Well-
weathering it that way worked. I thought it worked
It's
really
a
well.
it's a great imaginary version of how a rubber mask would deteriorate. It's not at all realistic, but it's wonderful.
Well,
I mean, it's
also
better
found
than
that
real.
to be like, again, because I felt like this movie has like an affection for all the other movies, even the ones it ignores. I felt that was like a nice callback to the two Rob Zombie Halloweens, while
Yeah.
still being its own thing. And I also just like what they originally called Michael Myers was the shape, and by doing this to the mask, like it removed all the Bill Shatner-ness of it for me. Like it became a shape, this what you intend Michael Myers to be, which is the shape of evil. And
Lori does call him the shape. She says she saw the
Yeah,
shape.
she does. Isn't that interesting? That's the first time that's actually ever been referred to. I love the design of this character, by the way. I mean, unlike you, Drew, I'm totally down with Michael Myers no matter what mask he's wearing. Because I love the overalls and the strange mask. But this is easily the best version I've ever seen. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. It is, I have to say, the mask is fairly similar, I think, to the zombie mask.
It doesn't quite have the Frankenstein vibe that the Rob Zombie mask, which was also a very cool mask. I'm not for as much shit as I will talk about those movies, the design of Michael Myers was not really one of my major issues per se.
And I like that it's not an overly the face needs to have some length to it, I think, to look scary enough. Whenever Michael's face sort of looks more round than long, he looks a little odd in these films. And there's been like 10 movies prior to this for them to try different looks for Michael, and this is just fantastic.
Well,
And
I think this was them also. I saw an interview with the director, and he the interviewer said, I just watched this movie and people cheered when Michael Myers puts his mask on for the first
yeah,
time. How does it feel that you made people cheer for a serial killer? And it's like, well, that's because we stopped viewing him as a serial killer. Michael Myers is a monster, just like Frankenstein or the Mummy, which I
Yeah.
think is fair at this point. This is, no matter how like stripped back they made him, they also acknowledge that this is a character that is now mythic
Yeah.
in status.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, honestly, I get the problem that this movie is, in a sense, very safe. You walk in, and I know very well that Laurie's going to survive this movie. I know this movie's on rails. There's almost nothing this movie will do that will make me truly shocked. Instead, it's like me walking through a haunted house that's been built by a friend of mine, and instead it's gonna raise my heart a little bit, and I'm gonna laugh, and I'm gonna like congratulate him on what a good job he's doing. That's what it is. And I think if you're really punk rock and you don't like movies that feel safe at all, then you might come out of this just disgusted that this is like indoor bull stuff, and that's just not horror to you. I totally get that. But to me, this is the sweet spot.
But
I yeah,
But again, it's not just those tropes. Like they could have done that movie, and we've seen that movie in the Thorn ones, like
that's
these
true.
decent parts of the Thorn ones. There is also what we've talked about, the family part, how
Yeah.
Laurie Strode deals with things, what it's like to be a victim, how she deals with this family, like all of that stuff could have gone by the wayside. Like we were talking about earlier, like Jamie Lee Curtis could have just done this for a paycheck, but that's not what
That's true.
happens here.
Oh no, I
We
think
have a
yeah,
passing of the torch. We have a family that's broken. We have a grandmother who's survived something that has broken her, and she's concerned about her, her daughter and granddaughter, and how we also, there is some of the, how does Haddonfield deal with this?
yeah.
Well, I love Laurie Strode's daughter wearing a Christmas sweater on Halloween night. I thought that was such. This is definitely the funniest Halloween, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
The
like
kid,
very,
the babysat kid is so great.
I love. Oh shit! Everybody cheers.
I
when
love the
kid
part
is
where
because he's one of the smartest people in the movie.
Exactly, and I love the part where the babysitter's getting ready to go upstairs, and he's like, send whatever the boyfriend's name, send him.
Send him. Yes.
Yeah. No, he
Okay.
was so cute, that kid. I just adored him. I love everything
I
he
was very
does. Now,
happy that he survives.
I will say
Yeah.
one thing though, and that is that I'm bothered by the fact that we don't see. I mean, we see that he survives probably, but we don't see him again after he takes off, and we also don't see the jerky boyfriend of the granddaughter of Allison after after she kind of dumps him. And I'm like, I'd like to see some resolution with these characters, either have them help out or have them do something. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just kind of felt
That's
like
that's
it
part of
was
the plotting
anticlimactic.
issues that I was telling you about. Like threads get dropped, and
Yeah.
and resolution could just be
That kid was awesome.
easy enough to do. Yeah, the kid was awesome. The
All right.
audience of the theater where I was at loved the hell out of the kid. It was like
Sure.
when I saw Get Out, the friend who's the the one who works with
Cop.
the cop, who was security with the airlines or whatever. It was that kind of a character, the smart one, the one who's like knows like, what there's scary shit going on here. We need to get out of here. What's going on? Why are you stupid white people continuing in this house? So great. There were some really great fist pump scenes. I know we're gonna get to the end pretty soon, but when Laurie Strode's daughter finally picks up a rifle from as her childhood rifle, that was just great.
Yeah,
New Loomis. Oh my god, let's talk about New Loomis. Oh my god,
that guy did such a good Donald Pleasance impersonation. I felt like that they kind of made a mistake in bumping that character off.
I think so too. And like the weird twist of his like wanting to
See what it's like to be a murderer.
wanting Michael to escape and feel and find out what it's like to be a murderer. It just seems really didn't seem
I
there was
actually-
that part was not necessarily my favorite part, but it did add like an extra, like when all of that all of that stuff is the part that's like horror movie dumb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where nobody can kind of put it together, and then there's just a lot of death involved in like how I think most people would approach it, as opposed to how horror movie people approach these things. And but
And I
his
tell you
death
what I
is
think that's
meant for
meant.
some like
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
fuck yeah kind of like things from the
Yeah.
audience, because it's gruesome.
I really feel like they don't want. See, the thing is, Laurie says for us what we're thinking when he's introduced, which is, "Oh, you're the new Loomis,"
Yeah.
but they don't want, because it's something I'm about to ask Joy about in just a second, because I want her to kick off the next topic. But because of something they've decided in the structure of this film, they don't want him to, in the end, be the gun-toting savior who walks in and shoots Michael for the teenagers.
Which is a good choice.
It's a good choice,
And I
and the
think
way they've
that's
decided to get rid of him is by making him bonkers.
well, he's
But
a one-man Thorn cult. You
yes,
know,
exactly.
like
In a
I
way, he's the homage to the Thorn movies. He
I hadn't
really
thought
is.
about it.
Yeah,
That's
he's
He's
but
also the Paul Rudd.
the actor was great.
yeah,
Like I really I don't know what this actor's name, but I thought like he does a terrific job
He's,
of
he's called
channeling Don Pleasance.
he's called Haluk Bill. I can't pronounce this. Bilginer. So Bilginer, I guess he's Turkish.
He was dynamite. Like he was so entertaining to watch. He made stuff that shouldn't have worked work for me. Because like the choices they make with the character are strange, but
But he
I
sells
just
them.
found he was so entertaining to me. Like I you know, like yeah, none of it makes sense. Like why does he put on Michael Myers' mask at
Oh,
one
that makes
point?
sense to me.
Yeah,
He's obsessed with him. He's been obsessed with him his whole life, and now he's got this mask here, and he's gonna help Michael by saving him from from getting captured and killed or whatever. And he gets to find out what it's like to murder someone, which he's always wanted to know. So it makes sense. I mean, I think
well,
that's
he
interesting.
also, I think he, you know, like Jason talks about. I may be saying the phrase, but sort of crystallizing the myth, because he's like, I'm studying evil. I'm
yeah,
studying evil, and it's this like we're cementing the idea that Michael Myers is more than just. While he might be mortal, he isn't exactly a man. He is this evil thing, and you know, like so the fact that this doctor has lost his mind. You know,
yeah,
he's not exactly, because Loomis was effectively the Van Helsing character in the old
yes,
Halloween movies. This is you know, you've taken this another direction, and again, he's the one-man Thorn cult, and I loved it.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
No, absolutely.
also, he's, you know, when he's talking and he's so obsessed and like, what I want to know about this and everything. It's also a kind of side hand nod to horror fans, and like, I just
That's
want to
true.
know what makes him tick. And you know, people who
It's
consider themselves more normal, like, what?
and
No,
it's also so funny that
that's a killer.
his
what are you talking
lines.
about?
He's so you're exactly right, and it's just so, compared with the reality of all of the stuff that Jamie Lee Curtis says when she's like in her living room and when she's swilling wine and whatever, she's so real. This guy is a weird cartoon, and I'm kind of not knocking it. I think he's sort of something that he's used he's serving these purposes that we've
Well,
described.
that's what he is, what Donald Pleasance is in the first movie, because Donald Pleasance is very big. You
That's true.
know, everything else in the movie
That's
is not.
true. That's true. So he's an interesting, in a way, a twist on Donald Pleasance, because the other Donald Pleasance in this movie is Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
Well,
So
she's the real new Loomis.
yeah, she's the real new Loomis, right? Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, so Joya, explain to me, and I think there's something here to look at. You said, "Hey, this is a post Me Too Halloween," and I think there's something to that. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, the women are the heroines, so and it's not even just one woman. It's not even just Laurie. It's multi-generational badass females taking charge here. The cops aren't really around. I mean, they're kind of useless. New Loomis turns out to be a bad guy. Not he turns out to be bonkers crazy. And the boyfriends aren't even like really around, or the husbands. The one husband gets killed pretty quickly because he goes outside like an idiot, even though he's in a
Yeah.
fortress. And so, you just have Lori, who has trained her daughter, much to her daughter's chagrin, to defend herself, and granddaughter who just inherited it by osmosis because she's really bright. The way that she gets out of the situation with the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
She tells him she's able to read his mind as to what would make him, because he's killed someone, and now he's got her in the back of a police car, and she says, I know that he says Michael never spoke, and she's like, well, he spoke to me. He said one word after he killed my friend, which was another. Oh, by the way, I want to get back to that because that was an awesome scene. And then she goes, he said one word to me, and he's like, what is it? What is it? She's like, well, if you let me out, I'll tell you. And he's like, what is it? So that was brilliant, and
Yeah.
then then some of the other things she does in the house as well show that she's no dummy. But that was just, I was like, she's
Whereas
picked up on this.
the men are useless. The men are like,
Yeah.
Well,
the
they
men
make
are
poor
literally,
choices.
there is one man who is a powerful decider who actually does useful things in a sense in this film, and that's Michael Myers. The rest of them are all idiots. They are,
Yeah.
in
No,
other words, men in this universe are either monsters or children. Their father is a fucking tool. He is an idiot. He spouts stupid pop psychology bullshit. Like,
I don't
well,
know. I
it's not
think
up
you're
to
being a
you
little
to
hard
solve.
on him.
He
But anyway,
is.
he's
Oh
not
my God!
useful. He's not
When
useful.
at
he
the
said,
very least, though, they're all milk toasts.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of telegraphed by the fact that, and and it's kind of cute, and I'm totally down with the way Gen Z are a lot more fluid with like their gender identity and so forth. But the couple going as Bonnie and Clyde, but like gender swapped. Yeah,
Sure.
the fact that she then is Clyde in that relationship, I just thought that was all cool and kind of like playing into this idea that this is the movie where the women are take charge, and that's going to put an end to Michael.
Oh
Yeah, good
man, but
point.
the boyfriend could not have gotten killed sooner. I will
Yeah.
say.
Agree.
What a-
Well, but then there's the
Does the
so-called
boyfriend get
ally,
killed?
right?
No,
There's
he doesn't get killed. The
Oh, that's
her
right.
disappears.
That's right.
boyfriend,
But the
who plays Bonnie, does not ever get. That's what I'm saying. He kind of
Oh, that's right.
disappears, and we don't ever know what
he's
happens
just
to
there
him.
to
Storing
cheat
him
and get
away
rid of
for a
her.
I wish he
sequel.
would have.
He should have
been.
gotten
But
killed.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe that
But
was
it's
just
the
me misremembering because he's just so despicable.
Wishful thinking.
But this is my point about Me Too is it's the so-called ally who turns out to be an idiot and a traitor and deserves what he gets. Because the
He
ally
doesn't get anything.
who's like, oh, your boyfriend doesn't understand you, but I understand you, and then he turns out to be a sexual
Oh,
harasser,
that guy.
and he gets hung on a
Well,
fucking fence post like
so
he deserves
again,
it.
I don't think that's fair. I mean, I think he's not a terrible person. He made, he was awkward. That's more like the Aziz Ansari level of awkwardness.
Yeah,
Where he's
but I
like,
mean, but right
oh, I
now
thought I was
with the
allowed.
tenor of the times,
Yeah, no, I know, I get it.
Wouldn't you agree with the
I'm just
tenor
saying he
of times?
doesn't deserve to die a horrible death because he was
Well,
awkward.
no,
with
no,
his girl.
of course not.
Anyway, so
Nobody
he
Well,
died.
maybe it was
deserves
more
to
than
die
awkward,
any
maybe.
of these deaths.
Of course.
Yeah.
But let me
I'm
just say,
teasing when I say that.
let
I
me just
apologize.
say,
I'm sorry, the
Jason,
podcast journalist does deserve to die. That's fine.
let me
He's
just
an idiot.
say that that scene where the kid is he's just been like ditched by her. She's like, get away from me. That was not at all what I wanted for you to try to make out with me just because I was talking to you. And then he's just kind of sobbing. He's like, I'm sorry, I was drunk. And he's in the middle of this yard that has my favorite thing in this film, I think, probably, except for that little kid who's awesome, is the motion sensor lights, so that the lights go
That
on
don't
when they're in
light
the
up when
yard.
Michael moves. Oh
No,
my
no,
God.
they do, but they light up after he has already moved, and so that you
Symbol
now
for a
know he's
70-year-old.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so cool. So the motion sensor light. So you see him, he's like freaking out because he thinks they've been busted running through this person's yard. She's like, no, they're motion sensor light. So he falls down. He's sitting there sobbing in the middle or whatever, whining in the middle of the grass. And then the motion sensor lights go off. They kick back on. He sees a person. He assumes it's the owner of the house. He's talking to him. The guy's not talking back. And then motion sensor lights go out, and then they come back on, and he's closer. And then they go off, and then they come back on. He's getting killed. And I'm just like, this is fantastic. I love that so much.
It was like
It's
Don't Blink.
great.
It was like Don't Blink from Doctor
So
Who.
great. Exactly.
Also, like, I just want to take a moment when I talk about the score being amazing. This part to me exemplified it because you had the classic, like the Halloween creepy music, and then just to goose it up a bit, they added in this very discordian like electric guitar where it just go
Yes.
and like I was like, what the fuck? I loved that. Like it's just like that. This was also one of my favorite parts of the movie, Julia. Like you and I are on the same page. Like I thought this whole scene masterfully done, and like this is in a week, by the way, where I've watched a lot of really good horror. So like I felt like I was going into this with the benchmark set pretty high. Like this for this particular scene to impress me as much as it did is actually saying a lot, because like I was feeling pretty jaded when I walked into this movie.
Wow. And by the way, I have to say that the music, I need to get onto Google Play and listen to the soundtrack a couple times, because I think I was totally absorbed by the film that I did not come out with any impression of the music. I feel terrible saying that, but it's true. I did not. I mean, whereas I have to say,
Our
watching
16-year-old
Halloween
16-year-old's
4,
obsessed with the Halloween music.
no, but she's been playing this like 40-minute mix of everything up to this one, and which is great. But there was one of the Halloweens that we watched, I think it was Halloween 4 or maybe 5, that had this really ostentatious 1980s like guitar that was just like really obnoxious, and that is not this. But I actually, but I came out not really absorbing it. So, I'll do some listening this week, and I'm sure it's wonderful, because, you know, and that's as much as I have on that. But yeah, so I think definitely, I don't know if it's deliberate. I don't know if it deliberately is a quote unquote a Me Too kind of thing, but I really love that this is where the story organically goes. It's about these three women in this family who end up having this valiant victory, and there is nothing in the ether today that would stop that from happening. I think that's the best way to think of it, is that your story might have gone a different way, it might have gone a different way, but there is once upon a time, there would be a time when the screenwriter would say, and I think what happens in the end is you have the three generations of women and they're the only survivors, and the studios would have stepped in and said, that doesn't work for us, make sure that the boyfriend is there. I guarantee you, I know it sounds crazy, but that would have happened, and it didn't happen here, and that shows you where we've come, and I'm very happy about that. Um, I want to talk about other Easter eggs, like other things to look for that you were amazed by. Like one, I think you can clearly say that the Thorn trilogy that don't exist anymore, nevertheless, are referenced a lot in these films. I
And
think the
they
movie
reference the business of her
in this
being
film,
of her being his sister, and the girl goes, the friend, Allison's friend goes, oh, everybody. But a lot of people like to think that Michael is her grandmother's brother,
right?
but that's not true. It's just something that people say to make themselves
Right.
feel better about the fact that he chose her, so that they don't think it's like random or whatever.
Which truly makes all the other movies into campfire tales.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, they can exist. It reminds me of whatever happened to Truth, Justice, and the American Way, where it starts out and says this is an imaginary story, and then it has a little asterisk and it says, but then again, aren't they all? That you are chasing an ethereal dragon when you are trying to understand when something is canon and when something isn't. It's an absurd
Canon
question.
doesn't actually exist. This is
Right, it doesn't
this
exist.
is something that I have a lot of friends who are Star Wars fans who are very upset about the expanded
Extended
universe
yeah.
being quote unquote removed from canon, and I'm always very calmly try to tell them canon doesn't exist. Like, it's only what you choose. And I have my head canon for the Halloween franchise, and it's Halloween, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O, and that's always going to be my head canon. Not because I even think that those are the best movies. It's because I think as a narrative, that's the one I like the most. But I can also watch this movie and still enjoy it for its good points. And I can also even watch Halloween 4 and enjoy aspects of that. And I like this idea that you're not able to do that is weird to me, because, and maybe it's because I am a comic book fan, and as you said, like, comic book fans are very used to the idea of like alternate timelines because it's such a trope of
Yeah.
superhero comics. But like none of this twisty turniness with the Halloween franchise doesn't, it doesn't bother me that much because
I agree with you. I also do think though, like in things where there's a singular writer, I sometimes get frustrated with people's entitlement of I have to have it this way, and I don't think your thing should be this way, and I'm going to get really loud and angry because your thing is not the thing I think it should be.
But this
And
isn't
it's like,
like that.
I
though.
agree with
I
you about
understand.
that.
There isn't a singular
but
voice.
when you're saying like there's no canon to things, like I still, as a creator, think that once you put it out in the public, it is just there, right? Especially now in the age of the internet. However, I do think that if a person has a vision, that sometimes the sense of entitlement of I have my head canon, you're wrong, and then this very vocal saber rattling about that is kind of annoying. But I'm also on the opposite end of what you're talking about, where every time I try to go back to say like Marvel, like, oh man, that's this cool Nightcrawler thing. It sounds, and I read what they've done with Nightcrawler is one of my favorites, and I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm just gonna read the ones I read, and I don't care anything about any of this new crap because it sounds stupid to me. But that's me. Like, it doesn't. My enjoyment of it should not affect your enjoyment of it.
But my point about this isn't some novel series where Neil Gaiman or whomever is the one auteur vision behind it. Like there's been lots of people who have worked on the Halloween franchise. Absolutely. And like, yes, John Carpenter, obviously he's the guy, but he's also said, well, as long as they make these, I'll collect a paycheck on them, and that's fine with me too. So like obviously he's not even that invested in what happens. He was more involved with this one, and good on them, and I think that's one of the reasons why this movie is as good as it is. But I think when you're talking about like something like Star Wars, or in this case, Halloween, I think it's perfectly acceptable to go, okay, I like this particular iteration of this.
Sure.
And
no, absolutely. Well, a friend of mine also said that there's like 5 different, to him, there's 5 different Halloween timelines, and you can kind of pick and choose which of those is your kind of favorite timeline.
Yeah, I think
that's
super bonkers.
fair.
You can connect them all. I guarantee you that any pulp writer worth his
Tim Seeley, who does Hack Slash, actually swears that he has a mega Halloween timeline that makes sense of all of them.
You could. It would take you.
And
20
that guy is about the biggest Halloween fan I've ever met.
I just wanted to point out, but first of all, I apologize. I said the wrong title. I said Whatever Happened to Truth, Justice, and the American Way, but it was actually called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. So I'm sorry, but that was where that phrase came from. This is an imaginary story, but then again, aren't they all? It was Alan Moore. Alan Moore bringing tears to people's eyes with a fantastic Superman story, if you can believe that. But the one thing that I have to say, Tony, I agree with you. If you or any of us is ever blessed to get our hands on a world that somebody else has been working hard on, I think you can do a good job, you can do a poor job. But the one thing that I think all artists must not do ever again, ever, is go on to like Newsarama or whatever other thing interviews them and say, well, I wanted to get away from whatever bullshit that last guy was doing. I don't know what demon possesses writers to like like what the hell is the matter with you to go, that was really stupid, I'm not going to do that. Like, what possesses you? Why would you, even if you thought that, even if you would say that to somebody at a bar, why would you say that in the press? It just makes no sense to me.
Even though these guys are ignoring the previous movies, I never get a sense from this movie that there is any malicious intent towards them. Like I really do.
I don't think so either.
I really do think that this is was a labor of love, and this was just the story they had wanted to tell, and to do that, you had to ignore some of the other all of the other movies, and that's fine because it works. And again, the end of this movie, like first of all, they killed off Laurie Strode in Halloween Resurrection, and this movie wouldn't have worked with that at all.
Oh my god!
But like the intensity of the end of this film, really hinged on the idea that this has been this single-minded obsession of Laurie Strode to build this trap for Michael Myers, and to have this like role reversal at the end of the movie. Like, that really is what sends this movie from being an average sequel to being a great sequel.
Yeah, and it's impossible to know what exactly Michael is thinking when he is looking up at them from the basement as it catches fire and they're staring at him. But Michael occasionally shows something like emotion. Like, there is one moment when he shows emotion when he knocks Laurie off the roof and she's laying there, and then he gets distracted by somebody yelling downstairs, and he turns back around and she's gone. This mask shows no emotion, but there is something in the body of this actor that's just like, God
What the
damn it.
fuck?
Well,
I think it was more like, huh, well done, well played.
Yeah, it's all of that. Plus, that's my gag.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what that's
Son
like.
of a bitch.
Yes.
So that's what
my
that's like.
mind.
Yeah, so that's what that's like.
I can almost imagine him when she says "Happy Halloween," Michael going, "God damn it! If I only spoke, I could have quippy lines like that too."
Yeah. If only my friend Freddie had taught me quips.
There's that moment is another that's yet another one where the cinematographer is doing stuff, or the director
because
is
she
doing
comes
stuff.
out of the darkness. She comes
like,
out
yeah.
of she looms out of the darkness like he would do before.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, like what you're saying, Drew, though, the filmmakers who did the Q&A, they definitely, they said they admitted, like, this is really daunting. Like, how do we pick this up? Like, can we even do this? Like, are we crazy to do this? As well as they never said, hey, there was all that dumb crap. It was, hey, there's lots of stuff, and we tried to put in the things that we love and, put in Easter eggs, but not to just be funny, haha, but to let's all view and create a thing that we all like, and let's make it, good for all of us. And then, if somebody doesn't have that knowledge, it's still, a good movie. And I think that's the best you can do when you come into a franchise like this.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's funny. Like, I just made a post about this on Facebook because this movie was released by Universal, and Universal is constantly in a state of trying to reboot the Universal monsters.
Yeah.
Don't do it the way you've been doing it. Do it like this. And
say more about that. What do you mean by that?
Okay, like, you can argue about the quality of this movie all you want, but the main thing is they brought in a movie that was tightly budgeted, it's crowd pleasing, and it delivers all the stuff you want from a Halloween movie.
Right.
So what they need to do is take that similar mentality and go, okay, we're going to make a Dracula movie. What do people actually, who are fans of Dracula, what do they actually want from a Dracula movie? And then find people who actually like those movies, instead of like trying to pound like getting a guy that writes, which is basically what they did with The Mummy, get a guy that writes the Transformers movies to write a Mummy movie. No, get a guy that likes old Universal monster movies and bring it in on a budget and try to do a smart modern version, because this movie delivers everything you want from a Halloween movie, but it's got all these contemporary flourishes that will appeal to people who aren't necessarily familiar with the 10 other movies that came before this. Yeah. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here, and I really hope Universal's paying attention, because like we're in, this is like the third horror film that outperforms expectations this year, and I think like there's no reason why they couldn't have done this with The Mummy. It's just because they decided it needed to be like a Marvel Studios thing. Instead,
that sheer universe crap was you can't force, like, it sounds great on paper, and everybody looks at the Avengers and goes, well, see, like, yes, but there was a shared comic universe. Like, you can't just, it doesn't just spring forth like that.
No one needed a $200 million mummy movie. I don't even think that, I don't remember what the Brendan Fraser ones cost, but I don't even think those cost that much. And even if they did, like, that's not like the Universal monsters are not that, it should be something more modest but also more stylish and more niche. But like, come on, Universal, you could own October, you could own the Halloween season if you wanted to, but they keep trying to make this a summer tentpole movie. And
Yeah.
I feel like there's something smart to be learned here about what works about monster movies and horror movies, and why people go to see them. And in
Oh.
particular, like this is just, this movie was actually a lot, because I was the one out of the podcast that was not looking that forward this movie, and I ended up being very, very impressed by it. So like, I just I really think that there was a lesson to be learned here.
My cynicism says that what the lesson will be is like, oh, more movies with masks or more franchise movies. Like, it won't be that, hey, horror does well, why don't you get people with love? They look at a movie and go, well, or that means we should increase the budgets because then it'll pull even more people in. Like, it's almost
is.
never, depending on who you get, who's behind things, it's all the lessons you think will be learned are almost never learned.
Yeah, that's because
And,
you can
and
get
that makes me sad. And I hate that I'm that cynical, but just knowing the inside baseball things that I do know, it's maddening how that works.
In a way, in a sense, what you're saying is just hope that they hire smart people, because the money
all you can hope for.
machine, itself does not learn lessons that require a great deal of thought, I think is the best way to put it. They learn only the sort of roughest lessons possible, and it'll be like, well, this kind of movie seems to be doing okay, so throw more money at that. And so what we as enjoyers of the art have to hope is that they hire clever people who then will do the thinking. But and like what happened here. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Also, what you can hope for, and I think another thing you're picking up on, Drew, is the difference is when you make a small budget movie, you tend to get less design by committee because there's less chance of like a catastrophic failure.
Oh yeah.
So what you want is a bunch of these smaller movies, because then they look at the numbers and go, I don't even have time to worry about this much money. This is like, you reach a certain thing, and a $20 bill is your $1 bill once you're at a, higher middle class, right? And then when you're really rich, $100 bill is your $1 bill, etc. And so these people look at a movie and go, oh, well, that's, send somebody out there. We'll look over it. We want it to not be, is it not a disaster? Okay, it sounds pretty good. But when it's a $200 million movie, everybody's looking at it and everybody's nitpicking it. And everybody has a stake in it, because losing that much money is crazy town. And it's got, name actors, and they have their agents, and they have to be successful, and blah, blah, blah. So what you're really saying is, let's have more indie horror that really is made by fans. And that's how we, as people who enjoy this genre, get cool stuff. And that's really kind of what it boils down to be honest. I mean, that's a vast oversimplification, but that's kind of where it's at.
It's just amazing to me that you can't get a good Dracula movie or a good mummy movie or whatever, because to me, as a fan of those old movies, it's not like I look at something like this and it's like, yeah, they clicked off all the check boxes that you would want from Michael Myers, and like, so to me, it's not that hard, and yet people, I don't know, it just like, and this movie is very pure, like and I admired that about it a lot. It didn't get I feel like you were saying this movie isn't very punk rock, but it is almost punk rock in its simplicity.
That's
like
true.
It doesn't try to get there's no real frills on this.
That's true.
And when it ends in a very John Carpenter way. Like it ends very bluntly, because John Carpenter movies always have these very like, and now it's over kind of ending. And I feel like this movie, like, the last 10-15 minutes are so intense, and then it just ends. And it's like, it ends like a jackhammer, because like your heart's like ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Like, and I think, again, the ending of this movie is really what elevates it above a lot of the other sequels, in my opinion.
Wow. So, are there, before we go to our final thoughts, are there any other Easter eggs that we want to point out, like other callbacks and so forth
Well, the
that we
fact that
might want to talk about?
the fact that they even burn Michael Myers alive has to kind of almost seem to be a callback to Halloween too.
Yeah, yeah, and we mentioned the bathroom, which turned up in multiple ones. Halloween 6. I think it was
There's
in one of
Rob
the
Zombie. It was an H2O and Rob Zombie's Halloween.
right. Right. We've called that's actually, it's very effective. Just somebody walking around outside of bathroom stalls, is just very clever. Uh Let me think. There's so we talked about Laurie walking out. Oh, Laurie standing outside across the street while
Yeah.
the teacher
Oh,
drones on about fate. Oh my God, that was amazing. With the granddaughter sitting there listening to the teacher drone on, and the teacher, by the way, is PJ freaking Souls,
Yeah.
who turned up also in zombies movies. I was so happy about that. I was really so happy for PJ Souls to kind of do a little. She is an Easter egg, basically. Um, that was wonderful. I can't think of any others, but I'm sure there's
Interestingly,
lots.
you just brought up PJ Souls, which reminds me, no nudity in this movie,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which I think is also a function of its modernity.
Oh
Like
yeah. We are
if this was
we are
made in the 80s, there would have been nudity.
we are way less comfortable with nudity in 2018 than we were in 1978. That's something that I have never quite been able to wrap my head
although,
around.
but it's for very different reasons. It's like you can't attribute it to prudishness because we don't have prudish audiences. We're like one of the most porn watching
Mm.
civilizations on the planet. It's because of I think more progressive values. Frankly, like we don't want to be exploitative of women's bodies and things like that.
Maybe
So
that is it.
yeah,
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
none of the filmmakers involved in this film are prudish, right wing conservatives. That's not why there's not any nudity in this film.
Huh.
Well, and I don't doubt, like, if there was some part that it seemed like it was necessary, I think they probably would have included it. But
Yeah.
like but to the point, like, I didn't miss it. Like, I didn't even think about it until like a day later. I was like, oh,
So I agree with you completely. Like in the 80s slasher movies where they would put in a topless scene just so they could secure their R rating, if nothing else was going. That always, not only was it exploitative, but it was annoying. Having said all that, I kind of feel like I don't know if a movie like Daughters of Darkness would get made today. I think there's a squeamishness about eroticism or rather that's just sort of gone away.
I don't think so. I think it's that this film in particular, again, wanted to make it about women are strong, women are not sex objects. I think that's all there is. I don't think you have to read into what does this say about all the other films of this
That's probably
generation.
true. This is probably the wrong movie to make that point about. And bless,
well,
I don't have a database
for
in
what
front of
it's
me, so.
worth, Jamie Lee Curtis was dismissive of that kind of. I just watched an interview where a guy asked her point blank, like, what do you think horror films say about women, and what do you think horror films say about our society? And she was like, I don't care about
Yeah.
that. I care about making a good movie, and I care about this movie. And she told the story about the day that she had to go and film the scene of her, like, sitting in her truck as Michael Myers is carted off to his new prison, where she's like drinking and she's got the gun. And she said that everybody on the crew that day wore a name tag saying, I am Laurie Strode.
Aw.
And she got very choked up about that. And I think that's what this movie is. When you talk about it being kind of a post Me Too slasher movie, I think there's that. But I don't think it's, to go back and put the older films through that lens necessarily. I don't know that that's particularly wise. But I do think there was definitely, I do think that the fact that there is no nudity in this is probably a deliberate choice because of what Julia is saying.
Yeah, that it doesn't fit with the overall theme. And I'm down with that. You're right. This is a terrible film to actually choose to discuss that particular thing. And
Well, the
like I
Halloween
say,
series has never been particularly erotic to begin with. Like there's
no,
some
no, no.
there's some sex
I
scenes
totally
in
agree.
them, but they're pretty tame anyway. So
Yeah.
I
It
don't
is
think
a topic that I'd like to return to, probably with some other films. I'm not sure what, but you're right. It doesn't fit here. And I love what you said about Jamie Lee Curtis going, I'm so sick of these questions about like what these movies mean for society. I think our role is kind of to pick at that a little bit, but she does offer good good guidance when it comes to that.
well, she
So
is the
that's
scream queen.
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's get our final thoughts on this film, and let's see, where's the order? It was Julia, Tony, Drew, David, and then if I have anything, I'll say it. So, Julia, final thoughts on Halloween 2018.
Well, I mean, it's like I said at the beginning, I feel like it's just, and I think Drew was reiterating that just a little while ago, that it's just so elegant in its simplicity, and it wants to be creepy. Oh, I know one thing I forgot to say earlier. I love what I hated about Halloween 6. I love about this film, and I think watching Halloween 6 right before this made this film so much better, because you're like, this is all the stuff that I was talking about that was not there, or that was there that shouldn't have been. And in this case, it's the creepiness, it's the messing, like I said, that I missed in Halloween 6, is when the playfulness of Michael Myers, where he's just like messing with you, and he's just kind of around, and you keep seeing him and not being sure what's going on, or he's a, like, this not just shows up, slashes somebody. This girl's talking on the phone and finding out that, oh my gosh, Michael Myers is loose and killing people, and so she's like, oh, looking out the window, and she's gonna come over here and close the window, and she's gonna be trying to close the blinds, and he's come around the side of the house. Like, we've watched him come around the side of the house, come into the house, come around behind her, and then slash her throat. It's not just pop slash throat. It's like, you got this, oh crap, is she gonna see him? What's gonna happen? I love that. I love the suspense of, is he gonna kill the kid? Is he gonna kill the baby? Like, all those things, that it's not just how many bodies can we get through in this 10-minute period, and then let's deal with these other people that have nothing to do with anything. It's all about Michael and Laurie. I think that's fantastic, and Laurie's family. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that we got to see it, and I'm excited for Halloween as a season, now that we've gotten that under our belts, because I felt like we were missing something.
All right, Tony, what are your final thoughts?
Like I said, I really like this movie. I think it's kind of one of the bars for making a sequel, especially a horror sequel. It does it's very pointed in what it does. It brings a few new things to the existing franchise. It modernized it in ways that felt up to date, but not hitting you over the head of like, ha ha, that old stuff sure is old, right? We've got new things. Like, no, we could talk on a cell phone. Like, none of that. It has the stuff that you want, and I think that fans want, and is told in a modern way. And I think too often people get into the role of, well, it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way, or cling. You can also cling too much to a previous thing, which I tend to more like, but over modernizing it can be bad as well. I think it does exactly what it's supposed to do. You can tell the people who made it that this is a labor of love, whether it works for you or not. I mean, it's still a pretty divisive movie. Even at Fantastic Fest, it was fairly divisive. Like, what do you think about this modernization? Because at the same time, we also got the new Suspiria, which I'm up and down on for various reasons. But there's a lot of buzz of like, oh, what is this new Halloween movie? Do I like it? I will say, if you should like what you like, but if you're looking at, for example, like the Thorn trilogy is like, that's how you make a film, like, that to me sounds more like nostalgia and less like enjoying really good cinema. I think this does a lot better with the material than a lot of the things that are in those. It's especially coming after being disappointed in my memories of 5, because I really enjoyed it at the time and held on to that up until now. But yeah, I it's great that it's coming out this season. Go see it. I guess if you're listening to this, hopefully you've seen it, because we just spoiled all the stuff.
Yeah.
And and by the way, it came out on on Michael Myers' birthday, October 19th, officially.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice.
You mean Michael Audrey Myers?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so.
to Mr. Drew.
I really enjoyed this movie. I actually, because I have my nostalgia goggles, headcanon movies, um, I was kind of apprehensive about a movie that ignored what came before initially, but on seeing this and seeing that there is a love there for the movies that they even ignored, even ignoring them, they do have
Mm.
respect for the franchise, and even ones that the fans are divisive for, because I felt like this movie did pay a lot of homage to what was done in the zombie movies, even if even though it kind of offered up some stuff as a rebuttal to those. I think that this is a very well made movie. Like, regardless, kind of echoing what Tony was saying. Like, even if you were like, no, I prefer Halloween 2 or I prefer Halloween 4, like those movies, this movie on a technical level, it's atmospheric, it's got witty dialogue, it's got a wonderful score, it's got a reason, just a sharp reminder of why Jamie Lee Curtis is a national treasure. And like this is great genre filmmaking, and I just really dug watching it, and I'm gonna look forward to watching it again. And we'll put this into a different context as time goes on, of course, because after a while this will be contextualized with the rest of the franchise, and people will pick it apart, and it'll be interesting to see that. But right now, in the moment, I think this was good October fun and a great movie to see in the theater, by the way, for the reasons that David and Tony was talking about, as this has got a lot of good audience participation in it.
Yeah, don't sit on this.
Yeah, go see it now.
Yeah. Wow, David, what about you?
Yeah, definitely in agreement. This is a movie to see in the theater. Audiences are obviously eating it up. It's made $77 million domestically. I mean, it's a powerhouse of a film, and even the detractors are having to begrudgingly admit that it's a crowd pleaser. And I definitely enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. My wife, who was not with me in Philadelphia, didn't see it with me, but she's really excited to see it as well, especially after I kind of pitched it the same way Julia has, as this kind of post Me Too, film about three generations of, as we say in Spanish, chingonas, fighting off against the monster. And it has all those hallmarks of a great classic monster film, in which the monster is once again, frightening and worthy of the respect and fear that people have for him. So yeah, a great return to form for the series. I know there's going to be a sequel. It's making way too much damn money, and the producers and writers have said that they originally wanted to film 2 films back to back, so we know one's coming. And of course, the after credit breathing scene obviously implies as much. So
yeah, we didn't stick around for that, but I read about it later. So is it just a black screen with breathing, or what are you seeing on the screen?
Just breathing.
It's just breathing as the credits are fading. Yeah.
I got you.
And of course, and also as the house is burning, the camera takes a look into the basement again, and you don't see him anywhere. So that's also.
Oh, okay.
Who does this guy think he is? Jason Voorhees?
So I actually, I'm interested in seeing where it goes as well. Although I would love for this to be the capstone for the series. I trust these filmmakers' vision. They did something really interesting with the series that I wasn't expecting it. It made it fresh and exciting again. And I'm willing to sit my ass down in the theater again to see what they do. So we'll see.
Wonderful. I have nothing to add. I think we've discussed this, and I think given people plenty of reason to understand why we loved it, and I really appreciate hearing you guys intelligence in discussing it. Okay, I will say this though, in wrapping up the entire series, is that this has been really neat to no way in hell were we going to go back and do 10 films before Halloween, but I like the way we did this, because I think we dove into 3 very strange Halloween movies, and then came to this Halloween 2018. And I think it was one of the best ways
Can
of
I
discovering.
throw something out there before we
Yeah,
get off the
please,
subject of Halloween?
please.
Because we've gone and done even in a weird matter of fact way, and I know this might be a divisive thing to throw out there because of our usual feelings towards Rob Zombie, but
Right.
maybe next October, just to say that we've done all of the Halloween movies, we should just go do the Rob Zombie Halloween.
I would actually be totally down for that because I think those movies do deserve study, and I think I probably like them a little bit better than you guys might. But boy, are they rough, man. I mean,
I haven't seen them in a few years, so I am prepared to revisit my feelings on them.
I'll say this: the actress who plays Laurie in those movies, Scout Tara Tom. I mean, I know her first name is Scout. Anyway, she's fantastic. She's a very good actress. But and there's other stuff that it will anger you, and so yeah. Why don't we plan on that next October? If we are all still together, we will do the zombie Halloweens. I think that makes sense. So cool.
Doesn't this mean we also have to do the resurrection?
No,
No,
that
no,
movie is
no.
I'm gonna say you're gonna do it. Let's go all in, man.
Yeah.
You know
All
what?
right,
Maybe
fine.
as a
All
bonus.
in.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
all in. Halloween Resurrection, we got to do. And actually, that makes three because there'd be the two zombies plus Resurrection.
Exactly.
And then yeah,
All
that
right.
makes sense.
And the
That
Rob
makes
Zombie ones are going to seem so much better after watching Halloween Resurrection.
Exactly. It'll be
I
a
can't even tell
nice
you.
palate cleanser. Yeah.
So you're telling me I've never watched those movies, but I always assumed that it would be okay because it's just a trashy, like made
Oh,
for
it's
some
so
extra
bad.
money.
It's
Oh,
Okay.
so bad.
it's super
It's
bad.
so bad.
Okay. All right. Well, next year we'll watch it. Okay. So I am dying to know what you guys are going to endorse. I want to talk about like what you guys have been reading or watching, and I have a feeling that we're going to repeat ourselves on this a little bit because some
Mhm.
things are like really big news lately.
Yep.
So same order: Julia, Tony, Drew, David. Julia, do you have anything to endorse?
Well, like Jason said, it's gonna be repeating from last week, and probably you guys will be repeating what I'm saying. But yes, The Haunting of Hill House is so good. Oh my god, we're like totally binge watching it this weekend. It is fantastic and scary and creepy. Great acting. So I just I can't. I just can't. Like there's been so many goosebump moments and moments where I've just been grabbed or occasionally hit Jason, but mostly grabbed him. They're like, ah! So I think if you're not already watching it and you have Netflix, then you should be watching it. If you don't have Netflix, you should be getting Netflix so that you can watch it.
Yeah, very good. That's excellent. Okay, Tony, what about you?
So I'm really curious about that because I've heard of how much departure there is
Mhm.
from the original, and Rain has just been reading tons of both about Shirley Jackson and her novels. So I don't know how that's going to fare in our household, but we haven't watched it yet. I've been
You
watching.
have to, yeah, you have to divorce yourself from the novel, according
Yeah,
based
that's
on what
going to be
Jason
kind of
was saying.
hard.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'll probably watch it. I don't know if she'll make it all the way through, which makes it harder for me to find time. It's much easier if we both can watch it. At the same time.
I suspect that once she starts watching it, I don't know. To
We'll
me,
see.
like all that stuff
We'll
just
see.
dissolved. But I don't know.
We'll see. I mean, she's been pretty invested, and I thought it was really cool because like all the Shirley Jackson stuff she's been reading. Anyway, I've been watching Daredevil, which I've enjoyed, and I'm super duper bummed that they're killing off Luke Cage. As
Boo.
far as like canceling that, because I could watch an infinite amount of Luke Cage smash up bad
Mm.
guys.
Me too.
But my actual endorsements are if you want something super stabby and you like things like The Raid, you should watch The Night Comes for Us. Oh man, is it just crazy martial arts, insanity, violence? It's fantastic. And that also, I wish that some of these things would come to theaters more often because it's definitely a crowd, full of full of people going, oh no, like that kind of thing. It's pretty awesome. Also, I put up the interview both on here and on Bleeding Cool for Beverly Luff Lynn, An Evening with Beverly Luff Lynn, which is a movie totally different, not kind of genre in the same way that what we usually cover, but I found it to be super hilarious. The director and he and his screenwriting partner were both great to interview and really funny. I just really liked that movie. It takes a bit to kind of get used to. I think it's not a comedy for everyone, but I love absurdity, and it's got great actors in it and lots of comedians that I really enjoy. So I've really been doing that. Also, I was talking to Jason and Drew earlier, and David, I guess, and I saw the trailer for Monster Club, which I never have seen, and I don't know how I missed this. Because Vincent Price and Donald Pleasance in an anthology about like a monster / disco. I'm kind of mad that none of you guys have told me, hey Tony,
I just assumed you'd seen it.
Tony, I only watched that movie in the past like 6 months. Honestly, first time.
That is like a favorite from my childhood. Like I love that movie, and it's a perfect Halloween time viewing.
Man, so like it. There's been some music recently that I didn't get into until past couple years, and feel like, how did you guys never tell me? Friends who are in the same kind of music as me. So I'm in the same boat. So Monster Club, if you have seen it, tell me about how it is on the Facebook page. But then also, like, anybody who hasn't seen it, let's all go to Amazon and watch that
and watch together.
Yeah, also there's something else that was really divisive at Fantastic Fest, but you can see it now, The Apostle, which has some brutality and insanity. It's Gareth Evans doing something way different than his usual style. So he's known for The Raid, which is funny that the other movie, The Night Comes for Us, is more like The Raid than this Gareth Evans, The Apostle. Like I said, super divisive, but has some really pretty intense stuff going on and some really interesting bits. So you can check that out on Netflix as well.
Cool. Drew, what do you have to share with us?
Well, my first few are completely self-serving. Again, kind of the same as last week. Just to reiterate, October 31st, Halloween. I'm going to be from 5 to 8 doing a signing at Austin Books and Comics. I'm trying to make a big thing out of it. Is for the recent Bat City special, Halloween Man Bat City special, which has all Austin. It's a completely Austin-based creative team, and they're all going to be there. We're going to be signing books, but of course you can bring your other Halloween Man books, and we will sign them. And there's of course going to be a costume contest and candy and all the wonderful Halloween stuff. And it's ending early enough that you can go do other Halloween stuff afterwards. But please, if you're in Austin, if you listen to the podcast, come out and say howdy. If you're not in Austin and you still want to get on Halloween Man fun, there are two things. The Bat City special did just now come out on Comixology this last Wednesday. And coming up next week, the 24th, is the first part of a 2-issue Halloween Man miniseries that is separate from the 2 Halloween Man ongoing. It's called Halloween Man Hallowtide, which is something I crafted essentially to be the ultimate Halloween Man story, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm glad that people are going to finally be able to read it, because this has been a big year for me in my comic, and to me this is like a nice little capper, and I hope people enjoy it. I'm also going to reiterate, though, like away from the self-serving stuff, Haunting of Hill House is awesome. And I'm going to get very particular. There is a jump scare in this that is it is the best jump scare since the first Friday the 13th, where Jason comes up out of the lake. Like, it's that good, and it is so masterful, and you'll know it, and you will know it when it happens. Because most of the time I don't think much of like boo kind of scares, and it's actually one of my problems with a lot of haunted house movies. This is so masterfully done. Jamie and I nearly jumped out of our bed when this happened, and the fact that Jason is laughing, I think he must have finally seen it. It is so
Yes.
good, and everything about the series is smart and well done. And it's again perfect to watch for the Halloween season because it's so spooky and creepy and good. But that in particular, if for that reason alone, it would still get my endorsement because just that one thing was so well done.
So, have any of you seen I meant to post this. Have anybody seen? There's an article going around where the guy put the jump scare from Exorcist 3 into other movies. So it's
I
just the
don't even
person
remember that.
chasing other people.
No,
Oh,
that's not.
Which
Okay.
one's the jump scare from Exorcist 3?
the sheet, where it reaches out, like chasing the person.
And so that's in other that just like randomly put into the
They
movies. It's
just
not
they
actually.
put it into like it's like a series of
That's funny.
stills where it's coming. It's like in various movies.
That's really funny.
Okay, you
It's
definitely
really,
got to
really
post that
good.
on our page. Then okay, all right, cool. David, what about you?
Okay, so yeah, I reiterate a lot of what people have said. I'm into all the same shows. I also want to recommend some spooky goodness that's for the whole family. It's a podcast from my friend, the best-selling writer Adam Gidwitz, whom I've just written a book with. It's coming out in April from Penguin, called The Chupacabras of the Rio Grande Valley. His podcast is called Grim, Grimmer, Grimmest, like Grimm as in the Brothers Grimm, and it is just this wonderful podcast where these scary folk tales are being read to a live audience of young kids, and they scream and they laugh along with it, and it's got really good music and cool production values. And it's, if you've got younger people in your family and you want to enjoy scariness altogether, I recommend that podcast, Grim, Grimmer, and Grimmest.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Okay, and as for me, I just want to make this mention of The Haunting of Hill House. Ruth Franklin, who is Shirley Jackson's biographer and who I interviewed on the interview segment of this show, she had this quote where, because uh, she's been covering the series, I think, for Variety. But anyway, she said, I never went to any television series with more trepidation. And I felt the same way, because we talked about it last week, where I was like, I know the plot is not from the TV show, uh, and so it sounded to me like making a new TV series called Oliver Twist, but then saying, but the plot's not actually the plot of Oliver Twist. And I was like, why would you do that? I didn't understand until I started watching it that actually it is a very intelligent homage to The Haunting of Hill House. They've taken all the characters from The Haunting of Hill House and just sort of arranged them as family members. It is a very thoughtful, I don't even know how else to put it, a very thoughtful variant on The Haunting of Hill House. And I've been amazed at how aware of the book this TV series is, and how respectful it is of the source material. So while making its own thing, it's pretty darn impressive. Whereas I could say honestly, there have been versions of The Haunting of Hill House. Well, I mean, certainly The Haunting, the '90s version, I did not get the impression. And look, people work hard. I'm sure wonderful people worked on that, but I didn't get the impression that people watching that really had a deep feeling about the source material. This really, really does, and that's incredible. Also, best Easter egg I found was not a jump scare, although that's pretty great. But Russ Tamlin, who played Luke in the movie version, shows up here as the psychiatrist of Nell, and that's amazing. It's pretty cool that a cast member from the Robert Wise version of The Haunting, which is most people's favorite version of this material, actually showed up. So that was cool. He's only in one episode, but it was neat. It was just a little sort of little Easter egg for us. So that was cool. The others, so look for Ruth Franklin's column on The Haunting of Hill House. And the other thing I wanted to mention is this weekend I read a book called The Auctioneer, which just came out a month or so ago in a new edition from Valancourt Press. And it's is a 1975 book, the first book from Joan Sampson. It was a bestseller, and then she died, and that was the last we heard of that author. But The Auctioneer is an amazing horror story about this town that is slowly corrupted by a sort of silver-tongued auctioneer who comes in and starts slowly taking everything away to create these auctions to fund first the police department and the fire department and so forth. And then sooner or later, he's corrupted the entire town. It's an amazing book, and it's recently been re-released because that's one of the things that Valancourt Press does. The author is Joan Sampson, so definitely check that out. It's, in a sense, it is brand new because it came out in '75, briefly a hit, disappeared, and now it's back, and you got to check it out. So that's my plug of the week. So that is our.
Before we say goodbye, I wanted to say thank you to David for accompanying us on this Halloween journey.
Oh yeah, it's been
fun.
delight. So much fun.
Enjoyed having you.
Thanks, guys. I'm a big fan, and it's always a delight to pitch in. Anytime you need me, I'm your pinch hitter, or whatever you call it, your pitch hitter.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Special guest star.
Special guest star. There you go. Take
You're
care,
a
guys.
special ghost, like Tim Conway on the right. You're the Artie Johnson of the Castle of Horror.
There you go, the Artie Johnson. Love it.
So, all right. Yeah, we're very, very super thankful. All right, guys, I am so thankful that I've had a chance to be with you all on this discussion, and I can't wait. If you're a listener and you're listening now and you're still with us, come to the Facebook page. Let us know what you think. There's still like a week to Halloween. We got a couple more things we're gonna do before the holiday is upon us. So I think next weekend we are going to be back with War of the Worlds, the amazing War of the Worlds. I can't wait to discuss that.
And my kids have a special surprise that they're working on for us as a podcast that we're gonna hopefully unveil at some point this week. So
Really?
look forward to that as well. Yes, you'll
Yes.
enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. It's fun.
So thank you very much. Come to the Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Introduce the show to your friends. Leave reviews. Everything. It means so much to us. We will talk to you very soon. Have a fantastic week. Bye, guys.
Bye
Happy
bye.
Halloween.
Later.